Yeah. Okay. I'm gonna. Done. Hello and welcome to the Hedonistic Way at Midday show. I'm Renee Main, and I was just tuning into this man before the call, and I just felt tenderness, and I felt your tender heart cracking mine open. So I want to just say thank you for that, Rhys. But for everybody else watching, this man is a mystery. He is outrageously open. He's bold, unique, whimsical, and what comes to mind for me is he's just the embodiment of gender reconciliation, and that just feels humbling to have Rhys on the show today. But he's walking the earth with such deep reverence, with his shamanism, his wild business decorum and diversity. And he's boldly walking between the worlds of social media, ritual, entrepreneurship, personal development, and he is making a splash. And so I just want to say welcome to the show, Rhys. It is so good to have you here.
I want to give a round of applause, even though it's about me, but just the way that you put that together, I really enjoyed that. Thank you.
That's my thing, right? And a lot of people will say, oh, do you want to send, should I send through a bio? And I just love to tune in to, because I'm intuitively guided to whoever comes on the show, and I really enjoy that process of tuning in and just sharing how my soul receives you. So
did I. Okay, when I start doing a bit more live shows, maybe I can get you to be my introduction person.
Yes, absolutely. Now, something that it's just like when I was tuning in before the call, before this show, I did really get the sense of you are the embodiment of gender reconciliation.
I like
and
that.
Yeah, that for me, it feels like the most potent and powerful thing that we can give to ourselves. And you are your ability to, your reverence to allow yourself to be seen. How do you show up like you do, fully owning all of who you are?
That's a good question, because I'm currently in a journey of going in a different way at the moment. So it's nice to reflect on what has been. For me, there's this, like, I'm a very, very curious person. I think we all are, but maybe I just have a bit more innate ability to dive into it. And when it comes to social media and showing up like that, because it's conversations I have with people around me, it just feels like there's a wider spectrum to be able to have those conversations, and social media is such a great platform for it.
Yeah.
And for me, there's a certain element of really enjoying the relationship between it, of being seen in it, because there's only a certain amount of people that I can show in it, because it's not like every day I'm in a circumstance where I can go into these sort of places where you fully show up. But social media does give you that platform. You can create whatever you want there. So it gives me a chance to really I want to be seen in these certain things, but also to be able to continue the conversation with others and give the permission. Like, just at first it was just like, oh, maybe I'll just do this to sort of integrate something that was going on. And then just the few people that would respond and be like, oh my God, like, I never thought, a man could do that, a human could do that, a white person could do, whatever it is that I identify as for someone, could do that. And then they do it. And I'm like, oh, like that feeling of like I just gave permission to someone. And I think that is and has been a big part of my way of showing up on social media, is to give permission to myself and permission to others.
And that's such, it's medicine, isn't it? You know, in that permission and creating that space is so powerful. You said something just then that for me it just anchored in, and because you said how it's not in everyday moments that you get to show up and it be that expression. And for me, for me it just kind of shone through that that's so true, but yet, like I can speak for myself, and I'm sure many other people, is we have that expectation, that I guess that idea of separation that doesn't always feel congruent, because you think, oh, you know, it's you know, can I be this form of expression while I'm doing the school pickup, or I don't know, listening to a whole bunch of people sitting around gossiping, or I don't, you know, whatever.
Whatever the circumstances that we're in.
Yeah. And how do you navigate and explore that space in between that freedom of self-expression and, I guess, the practicality and reality of life situations?
This is an interesting one for me, because it really rubs against my inner like rebel anarchist kind of person, where and one has to be different at times. So I find myself quite often in circumstances where you're meant to turn up one way and I actually turn up the opposite. So for instance, like I'm like over the years, I was deeply embedded in the hip hop scene here in Sydney and across Australia. And that's quite a masculine environment, right? And I would probably turn up a bit more flamboyant than everybody else, a bit more eccentric, a bit more like with a femme flair to me. But then if I do anything that's a bit more queer-centric, like I would probably turn up a bit more masculine, like a bit more like, and this is like, I guess, an interesting thing that can happen for me is like, it's like I want to push against the norm, which is both like something that is great for me, but also something is a bit of a hide as well. You know, like I went through a phase where I would go, because I worked in the music industry and I ran a record label and managed artists. Sometimes I would go to industry parties and I would turn up looking like an artist, you know, like I would be wearing these very like eccentric clothes once again, rather than a suit and like nice clothing, which for me for a while was really great. But then after a while, I seen it was also a sabotage. I sort of didn't want to blend in, and at some points it would, because it drew certain people in and it also pushed others away. So it's finding that balance. So for me, I don't really there's no occasion where I don't like, I feel pretty cool wearing whatever and showing up in whatever way. It's interesting. This is a very odd note that I don't know how important it is, but just as of recent, one of the things that I've been doing for like since forever, like since I grew up in a little country rural town, but I never ever wear shoes. And just as of recent, in the last like month or two, I've really become conscientious about how many people stare at my feet when I'm not doing it. I'm like, oh, maybe I have to start wearing shoes. It's interesting, but out of all things, it's the shoe thing that's getting to me as of recent.
Oh, that's funny. I love I love that. You mentioned that you were from the country then. I'm from the country as well. And so I don't know how small or large, like whereabouts did you grow up?
It's maybe not country, it's country-esque. It's more like beach, rural, semi-country. Do you know Jervis Bay?
Yes.
Yeah,
Beautiful spot. I love it there.
very
Yeah.
grateful to have grown up there.
Ah, beautiful. See, because that's my curiosity is it's I'm from the country, it's farmland. It's yeah. And so I'm curious as to be so, let's say, flamboyant, and so I guess pushing the boundaries to the societal norms. How did you go about doing that in such a small town? Because I know that can be difficult.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like, it can be it's got this weird, again, like, polarity of being quite open-minded and quite closed-minded down there.
Yeah.
But when I was about 14, 15, I sort of stepped out of like school construct. Like, I was in this said popular group, and then me and a eclectic of people in the year above my year and the year below sort of migrated out of, because we even had to separate in our school. Like, you had to hang out with the year seveners, hung out with the year seveners in this area, and blah blah blah.
Yeah.
But a few of us sort of found little niche spots in the school where we could hide and hang out, and we
Yeah.
sort of doing our own thing and had our own kind of expression that we had by like partying, drugs, alcohol, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and like just sex, and finding our expression through that and breaking out of the, I guess, school norm. But then so that sort of developed me into being like, okay, I can be a bit different. And then I started hanging out with the said like popular kids in a year above me, and they were all the football boys.
Yeah.
And it was such an interesting thing. They were like the strong, masculine, like
Yeah.
fucked all the chicks kind of guys. They were like some of the queerest blokes I've ever met. I'm still friends with a lot of them.
Yeah.
But like showers together, like always showing each other a cocks. Like,
Yeah.
man, some of them wore foundation to school. Like, it was really interesting. Fake tan. Like, I didn't do any of that, but they did.
Yeah.
So it was just like there was permission pieces around that were like, okay, cool. Like, I can find what I like within these things, and
Yeah.
it slowly just developed over the years. I would say, like, being early into sex and drugs and alcohol was definitely, and like raves and blah blah blah, like, I found so much eccentric queer energy around it, like, it, just the ways of expression, because of drugs really like allow you just to melt your identity and just be who the fuck you want.
Yeah. Yeah. And do you think that is a part of the addiction?
Yeah, it's an escapism for sure. Like, for me, like, even during those ages, like 17 to maybe 21, with like, I took a lot of ecstasy,
Yeah.
and it was not like I was addicted, but not like an addict,
Yeah.
in the manner of like, I didn't take pills every day and I couldn't live without them. But
Yeah.
like, if I went to a party, I wanted to take them because I wanted that, like, that cracked open, heart open, like, say everything that's on my heart, on my mind, and like sweat it out and dance and just like love everything, and it was like, I wouldn't do it without it, because that was how I felt liberated. But I didn't know at the time until I eventually clocked it, and I was like, oh fuck, I sort of need that. How can I find other ways into those modes without this tablet that cracks me open?
Yeah. And it's again, like, it's that permission, to explore those parts of yourself that you wouldn't necessarily have the courage to explore without it. I want to say, well, I'm just trying to feel like if there was anything else that I wanted to. I feel like your teenage years were, I don't know, such I mean, I get for all of us, I think, you know, they're probably paramount in shaping us. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like there's something around your teen. What would you tell your teenage self?
Ooh, that's a good question. I'm currently very, very obsessed with coming of age books. I've been reading so many come of age books.
Yeah.
So there's definitely a phase of that going on right now
Yeah.
around teenagehood, and there's there's a lot of mourning around it, actually, like knowing
Yeah.
I've lost a lot. Like there's a Frank Ocean song where he says something like, "We all notice our innocence once it's too late." And it's
Oh,
like,
absolutely.
um,
Yeah.
and what would I tell him? Just like, I would say express more. Like, it really, like, just express more. And like, if you really want to be an anarchist, like, peel the layers now. Like, everything that's in here that you won't let out, let it out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that freedom to express is so fucking potent. Like it's so powerful. Mm. Um, what is it about, you know, you were in the music industry for a long time. What is it about artists, like musicians, you know, whatever kind of form that comes in? How do they, you know, they're very tapped into being different, you know, expressing themselves in such a unique way. They're not scared to show up at the party wearing whatever. What do you think is the undercurrent that's in them that allows them to express that?
Hmm. It's a good question. I think it differs from each person. Like,
Yeah.
I think overall, it's like, it's just that, like, that wanting to, the purging, the catharsis that can come from expressing. I think everyone has there, but like, it's riddled with so many things like insecurity, um, like ego. This is all different people. Not everyone has this,
Yeah.
but everyone has flavors of it, I believe. Like insecurity, like even myself, like it's insecurity, it's ego, um, just like wanting to be different, you know, like really wanting to be seen. It's like there's such a battle to be seen,
Mm.
um, and to like impress yourself. I think that's a big one, is like to be able to impress yourself. There's nothing to me like better than to go like, oh wow, like to look back on something and go, oh yes, that was huge, you know.
Yeah.
That was big for me. That really changed. That was a pivotal change in my life when I expressed myself like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Mm. You said before um, about showing up and the rebel inside of you, like, and then, you know, wanting to, if everyone wore suits, you would want to wear something completely different. And you also spoke about that potentially being your saboteur as well. Tell me about that.
Mhm. Yeah, like I feel like there's such a fine line between being different and like sabotage. Like,
Mm.
um, it's such a niche, you know. Like,
Yeah.
like, yeah, rocking up at those places. Just using that for the example
Yeah.
at first, is like going to those places. I know a lot of them talked about me, you know,
Yeah.
like it was regardless, they would talk about me. And it's sort of like any news is good news, you know, like any
Yeah.
publicity is good publicity.
Yeah.
But there's an extent, you know, because it was like, I remember one time someone at a major record label came up to me and they're like, hey, like, I just have a question. I heard that you started a religion and became a millionaire. Is that true? And I just sort of like smiled and walked away, you know, because it was keeping this mythos real, and it's not real at all. But it was just like, and then that chitter chats around, but at the same time, it was just like, does this guy take this shit seriously? You know, like, is he just here to push buttons and not really, is there longevity in him? And in the end, like in the music industry, there wasn't longevity. I didn't want to do it anymore. And that was a part of, like, overall, it was sabotage in that lane, but overall it was like a liberation into where I want to go.
Yes, I see that now. If someone was watching and they were going, you know what, like, I walk this line, you know, it's, I want to, you know, I want to so badly be different. But also, you know, that I think can scare a lot of people as well. A lot of people have a lot of fear around that. But then some people would go, okay, well, I'm just going to rebel against that and do something that could potentially be the saboteur. What would you say to that person as to whether they could identify whether that was, I guess, in alignment to their soul?
To me, it's don't half do it. If you're gonna do it all the way. Like, it's, if you're gonna start a fire, like, burn the house down, you know, and see what's left afterwards. See if you like that or not, you know. Because for me, like, the current phase I'm going through is, over the last 6 months, like, really 6, 7, 8 months, whatever it was, like, really shot through and allowed myself to be seen in a new way and reach some kind of influence, like a new level of influence, which also came to a, like, you know, wealth or financial income way really helped me, like, by being seen by more, I made more money, made more clients, blah, blah, blah. And I was influenced by certain people in our community. What I was into, I also drew from them, and I really burnt the house, you know, I really set a flame. And now I'm looking at the rubble and going, okay, like, this is how I'm going to build the house different this time, you know, and the certain influences that I was drawing from, I don't want to do anymore. Like, there's a big way I don't want to show up, like, the same anymore. And there will be still similarities, but it's like I'm still rejigging, and it's like, and now I'm back at the architecture of it all. And I think it's important to, at least once in your life, to, like, if you want to be different, if you want to do something and you're not sure, but you've got an inkling of something, just go for it and go fucking hard, and then see what happens afterwards, and really test yourself, because there's so much prosperity that comes from doing something and realizing that's not what I want to do anymore, but what you gain out of the influence, the lesson, the being seen is such a big lesson.
Yeah, so true. I'm curious to know what you mentioned about, you know, you don't want to build the house the same. What don't you want to do now when you're in this architectural phase?
So like, for instance, there's a sort of like a big part of what I was doing was just like, me, like, show the world who I am. And, like, really it was in like lots of, like, daily posting, micro content that was also big, and, like, giving a lot of energy out. But what was missing for me is it had substance and it had impact, but it didn't have longevity. Like, any of the creativity that I was doing, like, if I do these posts every day, if I do these Facebook lives or whatever, they'll get some attention, they'll get some shares, they'll get some comments, I'll get some follows, blah, blah, blah. But a week later, it's sort of forgotten about.
Yeah.
And that's cool and all, but it's just not like, and people do it and they really excel, and it's
Yeah.
not about just the little things and how long they last. It's about the big picture that you create.
Yeah.
But for me, I just want to hone back on a bit of that. Like, I haven't done those kinds of posts in maybe a month now.
Yeah.
And I just want to, I'm working on art and
Yeah.
projects that I want to create longevity with, that can be a bit more timeless and have an effect that someone will want to come back to, you know, in a week or 2 weeks, a month or a year, and be like, oh, remember that thing Paisley did? I want to check that out.
I really resonate with that. And that's probably been my biggest lesson in 13 years that I've been online, and is that that's not sustainable. And that's how the hedonistic way was birthed, because it was me one day after, I don't know, it was probably 4 years ago, 3-4 years ago, that I went to my laptop, went to type, and no words would come out. Like, I was literally frozen for the first time. And it's someone that's written probably over 5,000 blog posts, different articles, all of these. And it was, for me, it was about exploring my pleasure. And for me, if there's no hedonism in it, then it's not sustainable. And there's that part that you go, for me, like, I don't want to contribute to the noise. If anything, I want someone to read my posts, and I want them to be still in that moment, and to lean in and let it really absorb, throughout whatever way it's, supposed to. And so I really resonate with what you're saying. And it has been a beautiful journey. I think we probably connected, like, I think when you were just kind of wrapping up in the music space. And so for me to witness the unfolding has been absolutely beautiful to watch. That unraveling, it's been really beautiful. And I've always been watching, and that probably sounds a bit stalkerish, but
That's social media. We stalk each other. We all stalk each other.
but it's been so beautiful to witness. And there's something that I do want to ask you, because you do an amazing experience. I've heard of it. It's amazing, and it's definitely on my list to do this year. Is the funeral experience. I want to ask you about that, because I'm curious to hear your thoughts about, like, I want to hear how it come about, because I know it's such a powerful experience. What is it about death that it takes death for us to go, who are we? What do I want to do? Like, I lost, my mum passed away like maybe 15 months ago. And we were super duper close. And so I didn't expect the unraveling that it was the questions. I'm like, what am I doing with my life? All of these things. What is it about death that it almost inspires us to take action?
So this is a difficult one at this current second.
Yeah.
So I don't want to say names.
Yeah.
But this practice was passed on to me.
Yeah.
By someone I love a lot, who I consider like a hero of mine, who's a mentor, in complete adornment since the day I laid eyes on them. And they passed away last week.
Wow, Rhys.
So yeah, it's such a, like, you know, like a full circle in a way of like practicing this death practice.
Wow.
And I hosted it the day I found out last week.
Yeah.
Which was a very significant, like I was very grateful to be able to
Yeah.
process it in that way.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, it's like it's curious that you asked that question of like, why does death ignite us to make such a change, you know? And it's like that's what I'm currently in, is it's like,
See that.
oh, I can feel the parts of me
Yes.
shifting and moving through.
Yeah.
And it's such a wild flavor of things, you know. The
Mm.
like death is such a beautiful, like, and like heart tearing thing. Again, such
Yeah.
polarity with it. Even
Yeah.
just last Friday when I was hosting the funeral, like I had supports,
Yeah.
and like one of the supports was like a 1 year anniversary of someone really close to them passing away, and another one, someone in their family members just about to pass away, and just like everyone, and the videographer just had someone close pass away,
Wow.
like the day before. And like it's so beautiful to be able to just have this reverent moment of people
Yeah.
choosing to go into a death
Mm.
ritual,
Mm.
and process in their own way. And in the support role, to be able and to sit over someone's grave in utter reverence, and to be able to be in your own um, like God mode,
Yes.
essentially, like, because we are all our own gods in our own way, but to be responsible for someone's life, it really
Yeah.
gives you a chance to reflect on how responsible you are for your own life, and for
Mm.
those around you, and when you're under there, to think about your own life and how you're responsible for it too.
Yeah.
So to be able to have death in your life is yeah, like, it's not something I wish upon anyone, but
Yeah.
also when you do have it, like, find the gifts in it.
Yeah.
Um, when I was 18, one of my best friends passed away, and since then it was sort of like, okay, live double the life, you know, like,
Yeah.
try and do more because he didn't get a chance, you know, like, he's so young. It's like, oh man, like, what else could I do, you know? And
Yeah.
anytime someone passes away that's close to me, or even just an artist that I really love, like in the way that they represented life, it is sort of a, for me personally, there's a sort of a part of me that wants to like, like, and put it in me, and really
Yeah.
double down on why I loved them, and bring a part of that into my life. Like step closer
Mm.
into intimacy with that person by really living the way that they wanted to live.
Yeah.
Mm.
That's beautiful. So beautiful. Um, um, now I know when I tuned into you, the tenderness of your heart, I felt, and I had tears in my eyes, like I was blown away by your tenderness. So thank you for being so open
Mm.
about that.
Mm.
Um, I'm curious to ask you your thoughts around, what do you think, or is there a difference between, because a part of the funeral experience is the rebirth. Is there a difference? So tell us about the rebirth process, but I'm also wanting to know is something I've been sitting with for a week or so is there a difference between being reborn and rebirthed, in
Mm.
your opinion?
Hmm. I've never thought about that.
Mm.
Um, part of my like head wants to like make a brilliant answer to this, but I
Yeah,
feel like I'd just be talking out my ass, so I'm not
yeah,
going to.
love
Um,
that.
yeah, just to me, I can talk about the rebirthing
Yeah, yeah,
process.
for sure.
Um, is like, especially when you're in, you know, you're underground, fully submerged. in the death process is I see in many, many different ways. But I guess my personal way would be is that I'm sort of back in the womb of the earth, and sort of when I'm getting buried, the weight of everything, I allow it to be the weight of all the things I want to die within me, because a big part of it like is inspired by just the suicide rates and believing that people commit suicide because there's a part of them that they want to die. There's some of them that they don't like anymore. They don't know how to deal with it anymore, and it eventually intoxicates everything within them. And they think it's just their whole being that needs to die. But what if there was a way to be like, oh, that bit that you can't deal with anymore, like let's cut it out like a cancer. And this is the rebirth, like the death and rebirth ritual. So like allowing the weight of the earth on top of you to really and there's sort of a like it's dying, it's either dying or you're just learning to love it, whatever it is you choose underneath there. But there's that moment when you're under, it goes like, again, in my experience and something I've noticed with a lot of people, is the first 5 minutes is like the ego brain, the survival brain, really getting the last it can out of it. Like, what the fuck have you done? Why have you chosen to die? Like Rhys Paisley, whoever is supporting you, you don't know him. You can't trust him. Like, he's an amateur. For me, it was like I've done it with best friends. I'm like, oh, this is like, I've known them for years, and everything leads up to this moment. They've been trying forever to get me under so they can fucking kill me. And it's like all this shit. And then eventually the surrender and dissolve can come. And a profound thing happens underneath there is it's like your heart starts to reflect and mirror the heartbeat of Mother Earth underneath there. And there's that softening and that renewal of like, like you are in the womb and your heart beats with your mum, you know? You're in there and it's warm and you're soft and you just relax and you don't know if you're standing, if you're laying, if you're upside down, if you're in, because it's sort of like a sensory deprivation situation that you're in. And it's that, again, like when you're born, some people are born through C-section when they're not even ready to come out. And it's a quite a like gruesome experience, you know, you're sort of yanked out and you don't know what's going on. But this time you choose, you know, you chose your death and you choose to like, okay, I'm ready to come out. And like just like sticking your head, because I allow people to, it's at the depths where it's hard, but you can get out. And like your hand pops out and it's just like the air is like, oh, you feel the sensuality and like life again. And you just want to sit like this for a bit, and then you slowly bring the rest of your body out, legs, your arms, your hips. And when you bring your body out, it's just like, oh, whoa. To me, it's like you hit with everything, and it's like life again, you know, like you've gone under for half an hour or whatever, and you're like, but it's like the whole world changes in that time. You see so much, your smell, your hearing, your eyes, your touch, everything is back, and you want it so much, and just like, I choose life. And power of intention, everyone brings in different things, but it's from A to B. Like it's to be the quiet, unheard person to the confident, seen person, or from the little girl or boy or child to the man, woman, or adult, or whatever it is in your life. In my experience and what I hear and unpack from other people, it's sort of like you hit with it when you come out, and you're like, I choose this thing, you know? So, and obviously just the metaphor of coming out of the grave, you know, and like, oh, you know? So
and
it's
consciously choosing, right? That's huge.
Yes.
You mentioned something with the sensory deprivation. Why is sensory deprivation so arousing, do you think?
It's like the more I've stepped into my eros and like really diving into sexuality,
Yeah.
like I find myself under there, even though I've got absolutely no room. I'm like slightly like thrusting my hips, and it's like,
Yeah.
yeah, and I get turned on, and I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, like, and just first of all, it just feels so good to have pressure on you, you know, like
Yeah.
just your body to be engaged in certain ways. It's
Mm.
so fucking nice. That's why it's like when you have sex and someone's on top of you, it just feels
Yeah.
so good. And like
Yeah.
any kind of like movement against you, that's why wrestling feels so good. All these things, the
Yes.
sensory deprivation is one, like in there, it's the pressure of everything.
Yeah.
And then to me, it's also it's the changing of senses. Like it's to be able to feel
Yes.
pleasure in new ways, you know, like you
Yes.
feel pleasure different when your eyes are open to when your eyes are closed to when you're blindfolded, when you're in a dark room, like
Yeah.
when you can't smell, when you smell certain things. Like
Yeah.
it's the change, it's the new experience. We find so much pleasure in new experiences. We find so much emotion, like, and it can be fear, it can be um shame, it can be guilt or
Mhm.
whatever, like
Yeah.
um just that ability to really feel things with a new emotion. I
Mm.
feel like there's pleasure in all emotions if you really allow yourself to go
Definitely.
there.
Absolutely.
And that was like a big discovery for me last year. I have a partner who's still a good friend of mine, and she introduced me into like shame sex.
Mm.
That was a game changer for me. Like to be able to, like, if I'm feeling shame, to dive into that during sex and like really bring all the things we're ashamed about into it, and like
Cool.
cathartically move through it in sex was just like, oh my God, like this is actual emotional processing right here. And because there's embodiment, there's movement, and there's eros, it's really, I'm finding so much pleasure in it. And yeah, that's what I've found throughout this like sensory deprivation, is because it ignites so much emotion in us. There's
Yeah.
pleasure in that because we're not
Yeah.
always trained to feel emotions at all times. But when you're put into a circumstance where no matter what, you're going to feel something, I
Yeah.
feel like once you've gone through that ego, terrifying fear and whatnot, it's because you've ignited emotion,
Yeah.
then it leaves, once that passes through, there's room and pleasure starts to fill that space.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I just got you just I want to know more about shame sex. Oh my god. Tell me
Mm.
more.
um, so like it's the things that you have shame in that, like either it is erotic, like things that
Yeah.
erotically turn you on that are shameful, like going into that. So I think that's where kinks come from, right? Is like,
Absolutely.
I'm into feet, I'm into this, I'm into that, like, and when you get to go into it, it's so liberating, you know.
Mhm.
But there's times where, like, just for instance, you know, I put on a show and it doesn't sell the amount of tickets that I want, and I'm shame, I'm not as big as I thought or whatever. And
Yeah.
afterwards, like bringing that into the bedroom of like
Yeah.
being like, oh, you know, like I'm a bit pathetic or whatever, and going into it and really moving through it. It's like I was saying with the
Yeah.
sensory deprivation, and it opens
Yeah.
up space um, to be able to, like, okay, I've moved into it, and you've really seen me in it because we're fucking intimately very close.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, Going into that and then feeling in the space, and eventually the eros just goes so much more. Like I know for me, if I'm in a shameful situation, like I can go from a cock like this to a cock like this, you
Yes.
know,
Yeah.
where it's like, oh, it's okay to have this in this moment.
Yes.
um, and even like situations we were moving through is, both of us have been through sexual abuse in our life, and
Mm.
we went into them. We
Mm.
role played them in a conscious choosing way, similar to choosing to
Wow.
go to death and rebirth. Is like, let's go back into that situation and hold each other through it and take turns, blah blah blah, to be
Wow.
able to really hold each other and be seen and ask for what we need, whether that's like, this is what I need in, or like, stop, you know, and like
Yeah.
okay, and then unpack, and then do we want to continue, do we want to stop, you know? And the shame, because there's so much shame in sexual abuse, sure,
absolutely.
because in my experience, there's a part of me that liked it, you know, but it was trauma, it's bad for me. I liked it in some essence. So to be able to go back into that and really explore the pleasures and the trauma and the abuse consciously is such a turn on.
That's huge. It's there's just so much beauty, isn't there, and I think, you know, as you were saying before, is that, you know, like it's such beauty in giving yourself permission to be, you know, and there's pleasure in, you know, what we could perceive as pain or trauma or whatever it is. There's such beauty in that when you fully surrender and give yourself over to it. But having that someone who's able to hold you through that as well would be absolutely huge. And I think that's something that I want to ask you about, actually, is because a lot of the time with abuse is I'll say break the cycle, but that doesn't really feel honoring. They continue to experience abusive relationships, you know, whether it be with an intimate partner or their friends or whoever it is. What would you say, or have you had any experience about, you know, having someone who can meet you and hold you consciously so you can move through this in a really honoring way, versus continually, you know, just attracting.
So I actually had a really great realization about it just on Saturday. So, like, given the circumstances of last week, by Saturday I was very dissociated from my body. Or even Friday night, once I went into facilitator mode, I sort of dissociated from my body and somewhat, and just went into like holding space for others. And one of my close male friends who I'm quite intimate with in a non-sexual way, he offered to come stay the night with me, and I said no. In any other circumstance I would have said yes, but no, because I didn't want to be held, because I didn't want to get back into my body just yet. And I didn't fully consciously clock that. And then on Saturday we were together and we just held hands, and I like cuddled up to him, and it was the masculine, because he has a strong masculine, like the holding actually was allowing me to like drop back into my body, and it's sobbing, and my sort of like kundalini was awakened, and like I'm like dropping into my body, and it's sort of like it hurt, but it was pleasurable at the same time, because I didn't want to be in my body, but I also did. And why I'm saying this is like with this female partner that I had last year, and we went through these processes, why it was such an equal process with one another is she had a very strong masculine, and because I have a strong masculine and a strong feminine, she also trusted me to like not only hold space but to understand the emotions as well. And I think that's a really important part, is to stop perpetuating a cycle, a pattern, is to be able to have an integrated in both sides, an integrated masculine and feminine, to be able to hold one another and to be able to have the emotional intelligence to understand, feel one another throughout it. Because like I might be holding space for something, and like for instance, if I'm representing someone as an abuser in sex, like I can go into that, and my masculine can like really go into it. But also my feminine has to be in tune to be able to go, okay, I feel that there's a moment happening, check in, you know, like, and are you okay? Actually, no, I'm not okay. Can we stop? Yep, okay. And because they're in their trigger in that moment, they might not be able to fully communicate a stop, you know? And likewise, like for her to hold space for me, if she only had feminine, like, and was only able to feel my feelings but not hold me if I started to crumble, like, that'd be a very unsafe situation for me. So I do believe a healthy masculine and feminine is how you can go into those situations and break the cycle.
I totally agree. And it's really beautiful. Just how you just, how you show up every day, Rhys, is just, it's so beautiful. And I love your approach to life. It's it leaves me feeling just so super humbled. So thank you. Before we wrap up, I do actually want to ask you two things. I want to ask you about, I just seen that you're doing a retreat with Tyron in Cairns. I want to ask you about, what are you guys doing? What are you up to? Tyron's been on the show before, and it's probably one episode that continually gets like people views all the time. So and so I'm curious to see. I want to be there. I want to go. But tell me about what you guys are up to.
So Tyron and I, like, there's just a camaraderie between one another, and we don't even really know each other. We've only met in person once, and before that we already knew we wanted to work together, just because we had done one of these on my Instagram. I was interviewing people at one point, and him and I just clicked off, and it was my most engaging one. People went crazy for our conversation. I was like, oh, okay, cool, like, looks like there's something there. And we just here and there message, and then we went to this event together. The name of it's not important, but we were there, and it was like a men's conference that went for a weekend. And it was a lot of talking about what needs to change. But there wasn't, in my opinion, a lot of like tools. It was like talking about, we have the tools to do it. And you guys, you just need to, talk more. You need to be more vulnerable, be more this. But it's like, how? Show us. Let's do an exercise together. And both Tyron and I walked out of it, talked like a few times. And at one point, him and I both, like, I stood up and I was like, this is bullshit. Like, give us some tools. Let's push this further. And we both, had, and then he had the same thing. And, and I don't want to knock them, because there is that, just the conversation about the conversation is important to some people. Some people aren't ready for the massive tools, but it was like, us was like, all right, well, let's go back there and not just be the people that kick up a storm and walk out, but let's go back and show that we can still be men and bite down on our pride, but let's do something about it, let's create something. So both of us have tools, and we've journeyed a lot around the masculine, around the feminine, around what it means to be an aligned man. And we've both been the opposite. We've both been very unconscious, taken lots of drugs, had lots of unconscious sexual experiences, bad relationships, blah, blah, blah. And we just have tools, like he's done a lot of stuff with ISTA and many different workshops, men's journeys, blah, blah, blah. I've done a lot of stuff in the arts world through Spiral, blah, blah, blah. We are dancing Eros, and just our own personal journeys, what we picked up there is like, cool, let's get men together for a week and really dive into it, and really every day is a rite of passage, and going into these different things and seeing how far we can we can push it, how far we can get men into these kinds of embodiments in a week.
Yeah, yeah. It sounds beautiful. It really does. And that's, you know, especially over the last week, you know, more so in Australia, with, you know, there's been a lot of talk around domestic violence, family violence, you know, how people are showing up. And, you know, and I think when these things happen, it's really easy to go into man blaming and shaming and everything else. But I'm with you, like, where are the fucking tools? You know, how are we, you know, I was talking about it with my daughter, and she started shaming the husband, and I said, you know, I said, the system failed him too, honey. Like, you know, we can't just, you know, judge everyone, you know. And so I agree that, you know, the support needs to be around men and women, and what you're doing is such a really important way to show up, because people talk about, well, you just need to do this, and it sounds really simple, but it's not. Because if you've lived decades, you know, with living a certain way, you know, and the generational ancestral baggage as well is absolutely huge. So having something like this, we really need it.
Yeah, it's very important. This is going to be the first time I've done just a men's thing like this before, because I like to keep it open, because I'm quite like gender and sexual fluid, but it just felt right that Tyron and I do something like this, and just to be able to like dive into like some very specific men's stuff would be nice. I've never fully done that. And just also like we are going to do some really like blokey things as well, like skydiving and canyoning and go to the pub and blah blah blah. It's not just going to be like a spiritual woo woo fest, you know. It's also going to be like, what do blokes like to do, you know, like not that that isn't just always a process in the way of like spirituality and whatnot, even though everything is sacred, nothing is sacred, you know. But just really exploring that as well.
I love this event. It really, really excites me. Like, it just, I love it. As soon as I seen it, I was like, oh, so good. I can't wait to you know, hear all about it, and just afterwards. And I know it's just going to be absolutely amazing. And I'll put the link on the page as well for those people who are interested to explore more. But I do have one final question for you. Oh, I have two. Crap.
No, as many as you like.
Okay. I want to know, what does a Paisley heart look like to you? What does it mean? What does it represent?
Yeah, it's a combination of things for me. It's like, one, I have it tattooed on my chest, but it's that blend of like I've always worn bandanas in some way, or really like loved the aesthetic of them, and I always, as a young'un, like really associated them with anarchists, and the anarchists in the manner of like what they're stereotyped as, like the rebel, the destroy, the fucking overthrow the government kind of thing. And they're wearing all these like Paisley bandanas over their face and whatnot. And so is that like the fucking like let's fucking do shit version of me. But then also like Paisley's, like the actual designs of them, they're so soft and sensual. Like you see them in so many like beautiful traditions, and like on these yummy scarves and blankets and weavings, and like they're on lots of sensual linen and all these different things. And just the word itself, like Paisley, it sounds very soft to me.
It does.
And that's just what I believe my heart is made of. There's a rebel, like a sensual rebel in here for me. And I guess that's the juxtaposition of it, and just of me, is to have like a Paisley heart.
Yeah, that's beautiful. I love that. What is turning you on at the moment?
Uh, like a few things. Like mysticism, like mystic icons. So I've been studying a lot around like people such as like Andre 3000, like Kendrick Lamar, Michael Jackson, David Bowie. These people that are like superstars, but they're quite mystique as well, and they're very prolific in a manner of like just like they hide and then they show up and it's like a real thing, and it's like complex art, and it's really thought out in many different layers beyond like comprehension, and you have to spend forever to be able to like really understand, and still you don't. That is really turning me on, and I'm just like really trying to lean into that version of myself, and it'll take a while. But that's sort of like what I was saying before, versus the person that's very like here all the time and trying to figure out how to go boom and then disappear and really figure myself out again and what I want to represent in the world. That's really turning me on. I guess there's lots of different flavors of that that's really turned me on. It'd be like the cultish way that it's done. Like there's just the level of aesthetic and mindset behind it, and like the clan and exclusivity that's really turning me on. And like currently I'm diving into figuring out, because I've had sex with men, and I've had intimate non-sexual relationships with men, but I've not had the both together.
Cool.
And the discovery into that, and the dive there is turning me on to be able to like really merge the two and feel okay in that, because though I talk about it a lot and I'm ideally quite into it, there's still a lot of conditioning around it, you know, like I would consider myself sexually fluid, intimately fluid, lovingly fluid, like all the versions of fluid, but still stuff comes up around it for me, you know. And also like, and just the more I'm going into it, like I've hung around with a few younger blokes, especially up here in Sydney, and especially in the EDM scene, like the electronic music scene, is how normal it is to all of them. Like young kids, like I know I'm young, I'm 28, but like younger kids that are like 18 to like 24, like sexual fluidity is just the norm to them.
You know?
I'm like blown and like turned on by it and blown away. Like even just watching TV shows like Sex Education at the moment, where they're just like, it's
I
so
love it.
normal. I'm like, this is great.
I love it.
This is great. So yeah, that's like the going into the fear and the love, and at wow, this coolest truck is driving past at the moment. It's got a Tupac, Biggie, and Eazy-E portrait on it. I'm loving it. Tangenting back. Yeah, and like just going into all that and the curiosity that I get to explore in there is really cool. So those are two things that turn me on.
I love that. And it just goes to show you, like I was having a conversation yesterday about how like I have a 13-year-old daughter, and our conversations around sexuality is so different. Like to when I was her age. Like, it blows me away, and I love it. Like, I love that it is fluid, and the whole idea, and it just goes to show you, like, for me, it just reinforces the importance of us doing the work, and how much our children can springboard off that is just, that turns me on at the moment, Rhys. It's huge. And I'm with you. Like, I love the there's no fear, and it's the norm. And yeah, I'm loving that.
Mind blowing. It's mind blowing.
It's
It
really
makes
cool.
sense, but it also blows my mind, you know? Like,
Yeah.
of course, the next generation are more okay with it because we were, but also just like, like, no, you guys are really cool with it. You know?
Yeah, it is. It's really, really cool. And that's, I'm seeing the shattering of all the mutable laws, you know, and once the laws that felt like they were, you know, immutable, but that, like, the law of gender, I'm like, how can the law of gender be mutable? Like, I don't understand that. And we're seeing it's happening before my eyes. Like, it's brilliant. I find it super exciting. But Rhys Paisley, you have just, I was feeling really crappy all morning, and it's just been such a treat to connect and share with you today.
Likewise. Yeah, no, these conversations are so important for myself, I'm sure for you, just to be able to have them, just like, let's just chat. I like, this is obviously a promotional thing, but also to me, this is just like, I'm just personally enjoying it. Even if it didn't make the internet, I'm happy, you know?
Absolutely. And yes, I feel really grateful. And if we can support you and help you in any way, it would be my absolute honor to be able to do that. And because the work that you're doing is incredible, and this unfurling that is you is just, I hold you in absolute reverence, because it's been just beautiful. Your vulnerability, just your tenderness, it just cracks my heart open. So thank you, because the courage that takes is fucking huge. So I just want to say thank you for showing up like that, and giving everyone else, me included, the permission to do the same. So
and I appreciate the platform to do it. I appreciate the platform to do it, and just that the moment, you know, as well, just like inviting me here and asking me the questions and allowing me to drop more into my body, my vulnerability, my heart, and whoever's here to witness it, I'm grateful.
Yeah, thank you, Rhys. I really appreciate it. And to everyone listening, love you all. Bye.
Thank you.